I'm sure, well, maybe not, y'all haven't all heard, but yeah, my Twitter was suspended for asking legitimate, logical questions, such as, how did he change his pants? I mean, that's pretty crazy. I don't know how you do such a huge thing and then go change your pants. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to my communities tab. But, like always, almost always, in any situation, you can follow the money. For those that don't remember my video from just a few days ago, I said that something would be happening soon, and then we had the garlic situation, then we have the South Texas situation, and also the Ohio one. Okay? So here's the thing. I know, it can be looked at in many different ways and what the reasoning would be, but usually if you use Occam's razor, you can go back to the, what rules all evil? Money. Money is the root of all evil. Also, I used to spend my time trying to debunk these. These didn't take very long, but the honest truth is it doesn't matter. I'm going to explain what the money I'm talking about, but it doesn't matter. It's already been done, and until people get the guts to start standing up and not feeling like they're wearing a tinfoil hat if they share this with all of their friends or whatever, it's going to continue happening. And maybe not continue because, we just might have all of our rights taken away. I asked Dan Crenshaw on Twitter today how much it takes to sell out your country. And I said, I'm sure $25 million a year with essentially no transparency is a good start. That might have been part of the reason I got suspended, but I don't think it was, because that was up for a pretty long time. But I guess it could have been. And I'm sure you're wondering, what $25 million am I talking about? Well, this TAPS Act, the Threat Assessment Protection and Safety Act that Mr. Crenshaw is pushing and has been pushing for a while now, which is pretty strange. He's a former Navy SEAL. You would think that, he knows that people don't just want their rights infringed upon. Well, that's why they have to create situations that get people into an emotional state. Because usually you can't just talk people out of this stuff. But when you use a lot of emotions in these type of situations, you can have people do essentially anything you want. Well, a large majority or even a small minority, especially if you have the president, pushing for it too, which for anybody continuing to make excuses for him, you really, I don't know what to say. Like, I saw American Joe, he did a video saying that I believe the current president is going to lose 2020 because of what he said this morning. And he lost hundreds, if not thousands, of subscribers for speaking the truth and saying constructive criticism. This has gone so far. Not only on the left, everybody thinks, oh, the left is crazy with their SJWs and whatnot. It's both sides. I've seen it firsthand. And it honestly is just as bad on both sides. Because you will be called every name in the book. You will even, I've had numerous people say, I must not be a veteran and stolen valor, all of this stuff, because I speak the truth about what's going on in DC. Just because you voted for someone doesn't mean they're like ride or die. Like that's not how it works. For anyone that truly, in their heart of hearts, wants to make America better, that's probably a trigger phrase, make America great, or, get us out of this black hole we're in. If you honestly wanted to do that, you would be open to listening to all of the facts. And if you were, you would quickly see that DC is ran by the same group of people. The lobbyists, the corporations, essentially the 1%. I've talked about this in my other videos. They write the legislation, hand it over to a congressman, tell the congressman, hey, you're going to have a job whenever you leave there. You can come be a lobbyist and make 10 times what you're making here. It happens every single day. They get kickbacks, campaign donations, whatever the case may be. And apparently that's really hard for these people to, to not sell out their country for a few dollars. It should be illegal. Any of the lobbying should be illegal. But let's get on with this $25 million a year that I'm talking about. So in that TAPS Act, essentially, you read the entire act. Actually, let me just read it to y'all. Well, let's look at it so I can break it down. Okay, so this is the House Bill 838, which is the TAPS Act. And that will include different forms of psychological training, resources, recognize behavioral threats, urge that this is a matter of national security. Remember, we've heard that before. And it's to include school safety programs, operational training programs, Congress, the Department of Homeland Security, state participation would be voluntary, but you will receive grant money if you participate. Isn't that interesting? That's exactly what they did with the red flag laws. I did a video on that probably a year ago now. But this is where it gets interesting. Besides for those grants, they will have $25 million for each fiscal year from 2020 to 2024. And to carry all of those things that I was just talking about, the security, the supposed psychological help, and things like that. But guess what? There's going to be a waiver. The secretary may waive or reduce each contribution required under the subset for eligible entities that demonstrate a need for such waiver. Who's going to be included in these waiver systems? Well, the state, educational entities, a unit of local government, or even non-governmental organizations, which means it's essentially for anybody that puts in for a grant. And of course that money gets kicked back. This is how they slip in things to the legislation. You think they really are all about these legislations and bills? No, of course not. That's how all of our congressmen make around $200,000 a year, but then in about 4 to 10 years end up multi-millionaires, or working for a lobbying company where they become a multi-millionaire. Here's another example. They started adding these random things. U.S. Bank wasting billions trying to track crime. So they're wasting billions trying to track people doing money laundering. Does that even make logical sense? Of course not, because they're just using the money themselves. They're paying themselves with this money. Even the 60 experts that were consulted on the report said it is nonsensical and you should not be able to have this information, because they wanted all the names of all these people. And then just recently, Congress allocated the largest amount of earmarks since 2010. They actually made earmarks illegal. If you don't know what an earmark is, that's where they have this fund and it's like, okay, this is going to go towards this certain thing. Like, let's say this is earmarked for research on a certain cancer, or laboratory funds for education, or whatever. Well, that's not really where the money was going to, and so when it was exposed, they made it illegal. But then they snuck it back in only a year later. Absolutely insane how this even happens. Snuck in $4.2 billion in earmarks. Oh, yes, void where prohibited by the Patriot Act or by any other act that they want to put in. Now I want to talk about the true root of these situations, and the true root of what they aren't talking about, what they refuse to talk about. Almost all of this can be directed at this one thing. 1 out of 3 children live without their biological father. 90% of homeless and runaway children. 85% of youths in prison. 71% of high school dropouts. 120% greater risk of becoming a subject of child abuse. 83% of fatherless children have behavioral problems. Youth suicides, 63% come from fatherless homes. Runaways, behavioral disorders I spoke of, 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes. 90% of homeless and runaway children come from fatherless homes. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes, 9 times the average. 70% of youths in state-operated institutions come from fatherless homes, 9 times the average. 85% of all youths in prison come from fatherless homes, 20 times the average. 75% of adolescents, patients in chemical abuse centers come from fatherless homes. 17.4 million. You are 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teenager in a fatherless home. 40% of children are being raised without a father. Almost every single school shooter has come from a fatherless home. I want everyone to understand that I'm not blaming fathers by any means. By any means. I am highlighting the importance of fathers and 2-parent households, which has been, divorce essentially has been normalized, and our children are paying for it. Another thing is, this doesn't, a lot of people think that, oh, there's more of these situations happening. Let's say that all of them actually did occur the way that they're saying that they occurred, okay? Let's just say that. They've had these situations forever. The only thing that's different is that we get 24 hours a day coverage of it. Like, let's say, I'm going to make a video of just, like, showing how many people die of, like, random crazy stuff. And if you're bombarded with it all day, every day, you're going to think that it happens all the time. It's called availability heuristic. And what's crazy is the money that is involved. There's there's a chart that I'm going to show y'all. It's called Death to Dollars. And so it's a comparison chart of how many deaths occur but compared to how much money is spent on these situations. Like heart conditions compared to these situations, or what. Let's take a look at that right now. This clearly shows that the media is 100% to blame for this. The 24/7 wall-to-wall coverage of certain situations make people believe that they are actually going to die of these situations, when in reality it's minute. And then we look over here at how much money is spent for heart disease compared to how many people die of heart disease. And then cancer and how much is spent. Terrorism is just absolutely off the charts. And these situations is even higher than that. They didn't use that in this chart, but I've explained it in my other videos. The billions of dollars that are spent on bulletproof doors and backpacks and insane things. So you can waste your time bickering and fighting with people, or you can let people know the truth about what's going on and reach across the aisle. There is no aisle. It's us versus them. That's honestly what people need to understand. We need to have strong local and state governments. That is the only hope we have at this point. There is no one, especially with an RRD next to their name, that can make any changes in DC. It has become a cancer that has metastasized beyond recognition. And I will not apologize for saying that. It's the truth. And if you pretend that everything's going to be okay, the normality bias, where you just say, oh, no, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Nothing will ever be fixed. It's kind of like with addiction, how they say the first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. We have a big problem. And our current administration is part of that, as is about 98% of the people in DC. But if you continue with this, no, it's some 4D chess and all of these things nothing's ever going to happen. So I was kind of interrupted there. I don't know where I stopped. But anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. And I will do a breakdown of these two situations if I have people joining my Patreon. Right now I only have 5 people on Patreon. But unfortunately, it looks like that's our only option, is Patreon or Subscribestar or something like that. It's an unfortunate truth that we can no longer really... I feel like I'm in China or North Korea. It really hurts whenever you know you served this country to protect our Constitution and our freedoms and our way of life, only to have it chipped away at bit by bit. And people are not seeing the significance. They would rather focus on the, can you believe that they're calling Trump this? I don't care at this point what they're calling him. In 6 years, he's going to be gone. Or 2 years, who knows? He'll be probably living in Israel or something, doing whatever he wants. But we will still be here. He will have armed guards for the rest of his life. We will not. Anyway, guys, y'all like, share, and subscribe.